last discussion, we really focused on meditation and meditation versus mindfulness, how they compare, how they contrast, the benefits and value of meditation practices, really using it to clear the mind or quiet the chatter or calm the chop, as the metaphors we've used as a way of energy preservation, preventing energy loss, gaining more energy. And then we kind of explored some different meditation techniques as a way to do that through breath, focusing on chakras or things in your external environment, focusing internally on things like chakras and mantras, or using kind of a vocal vibration to initiate some of these things. And so I want to, in reviewing what you've sent me, I want to continue in what you've called tier one, which my understanding is that's really focused on the self versus directing your focus outward or being in service of others, right? You're focusing more on your own energy conservation, preservation, energy gain, and really empowering yourself through, like we've said, mindfulness, meditation. And I want to go deeper into this concept of letting go. And I think we've kind of touched on it at points, and we've talked about things that deplete us or ways that we lose energy. And I think what you're getting at in this kind of letting go concept is letting go of those things that are consuming the energy, whether it's focusing on something that's bothering us or dedicating our thoughts and energy towards something that is not serving us, be it in our external environment, something in our past, and maybe an outdated form of you, I think is what you've written about. So I want to go deeper into that, and really, how does this all fit into the concept, the grander scheme of what we've been talking about in all of these, which is energy management. So how does it fit into the context of energy management, and what does it really mean to let go?
Wow, that's a lot. So first of all, nice summary. I feel like we're done, but
Okay.
we haven't started. So there's a lot of questions embedded in there. So I'm going to hold you accountable to keep us honest and not address any of those questions. Actually dive into them. So if I skip over some stuff, then you'll keep me honest.
Yeah.
But I like how you just pull things back to an overarching concept, which is my favorite, or something, or what I'm dwelling on these days, which is kind of energy management and energy. Well, I guess that's the best way to put it. Energy management. Part of that is generating energy and all the techniques for that, and part of that is being aware of where you might be losing energy, and how to address that as well. So I guess what I want to say is, to your final pointed question about what does it mean to let go, or what is letting go, I guess I want to answer that question with a question.
Yeah.
And to try to weasel out of this. I guess the question I want to ask is, from an energy management perspective, I want to ask myself, and this is one of my recent favorite terms because it sounds so not religious or spiritual. It sounds more like physics and scientific and quantum physics. I want to ask myself regularly, whether in meditation or whether being mindful or just during the course of my day, I want to ask myself, where am I entangled? And if we go back to these kind of basic premises that everything's energy, including me, including you, including the environment that we're in. Everything has a, if you can't go so far as to say everything has a consciousness, you could at least go so far as to say everything has energy, people have energy, animals, things have energy. We interface with that all day, every day. And if we're not interfacing with it physically, we're interfacing with it mentally and emotionally and whatever. But I would argue there is that entanglement that's happening all the time, where we're picking up stuff and we're putting stuff out there. And it's that dance, the dance of the Wooly masters. It's the, I think they call it the Leela in Sanskrit. It's the dance of life. So we're always doing this energy dance. We're touching things constantly, consciously or subconsciously or unconsciously. So given that baseline of entanglement and this flow of energy, I want to ask myself, what should I be focusing on and trying to intend or accomplish? And I can do that in focused meditations, where we try to clear our mind by focusing specifically on all the things you mentioned: external objects, internal chakras, mantras, or whatever, because our minds are pretty chatty. What you call it, the chop, right? So how do we counter that? And I think primarily, first and foremost, the way to counter that in meditation or in our life is to be able to be focused. If you can't be focused, and in this day and age, it's getting harder and harder because there's so many distractions. There's, there's noise and there's a million things going on. And if it's not that, it's like, oh, I haven't checked my phone in 30 seconds. So everything conspires to maintain the chop. And so I think it's fallen on us, or our responsibility ultimately, to try to push back against that. So, and that has to be, I think, willful and concerted and focused and intentional. So in meditation or in the course of my life, when I find myself being buffeted around and just blown around by the demands of my life and just by my thoughts, my thought processes, and God only knows what's affecting that, because the most random stuff comes up, right? Because of that constant impingement of external stimuli, I feel like I have to take time to intentionally focus, to say, okay, where was I? And where short-term goals, long-term goals, everything's on the table. And so,
was I stuck in the past? Was I too consumed with things in the future? Was it something that happened just 5 minutes ago? Someone bothered me? All those sorts of things.
All those sorts of things. Am I worried about something in the future? Like, am I, I don't know what, am I not dealing with something, so my mind keeps going there when I should just take care of that so I could bring my focus back? But it's a process. It's an analytical process. It's like self-analysis of like, what is pulling my focus and dispersing it at this moment? Whether you're sitting down at your computer trying to accomplish something for work or whatever, or whether you're sitting down meditating and just trying to engender a little bit more focus to start the day, or to recover from the day at the end of the day. Because everything's conspiring to pull your focus in a million directions. And then you're kind of a victim of all those things that are coming at you, and a victim of the consciousness that you're kind of left with. And that's no good. Like
Yeah.
victim mentality. How many people would go like, I'm down with that? Like nobody.
Yeah.
That's a no-no. So the question is, to what degree have we become passive in our own, or reactive in our own consciousness? And I think countering that must be initially willful and intentional. There has to be a part of your meditation, if not every meditation, I would argue maybe every meditation, and also a part of your everyday where you say, okay, where was I? Whether it's an immediate task or whether it's like, what am I doing with my life, for God's sake? This whole thing seems out of control. You
Yeah.
can ask, where was I, with any number of orientations and goals, and bring that focus back in.
Yeah.
So I know your question's about letting go.
Yeah.
So my argument is, and we'll get there, but my argument is, you can't completely let go until you can very intentionally focus.
Hmm.
Like you've got to be able to control your mind enough by focusing it and pushing out what you want out, in order to let go, to see what's left. Because
Yeah.
if you just sit down and say, okay, well, I'm going to work on letting go,
Yeah.
that's like saying, well, we don't need the dike anymore to hold back the sea.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what's going to happen. Things are just going to flood in. And I would argue that's our constant state of attention,
Hmm.
is being overwhelmed and flooded with all those emotions, all those things. So I say the first part of letting go is not. The first part of
Yeah.
letting go is the opposite of letting go, which is focusing with all the mechanisms at your disposal to try and see what you need to focus in on. Is it a candle flame in a meditation? Is it a mantra? Is it a visualization technique or something like that? Or is it just focusing on the task that you need to get off your plate at work before you move on to the next task, or before the meeting at 11 a.m. or something like that? So it takes mental training and all these different techniques to successfully accomplish that focusing. And then
And there's the element of like gaining awareness, right? Like you want awareness as to what's pulling your focus, which is pulling the energy, right? Where focus goes, energy flows, or something like that.
Yeah, that's good.
And then train or do some mental training to use things or points of focus to be able to control those sorts of things. And one of the things that just came to mind is, I think that concept of letting go for a lot of folks is done more unconsciously, or not as constructively as it could be, meaning we'll turn to alcohol or drugs or things that help us let go, but we're doing it unconsciously. We're not really having awareness of, what am I trying to like release here? And it's not
Right.
The most effective strategy, we'll say.
Right. Well, yeah, I guess we'd all argue that's true. It's not the most effective strategy. I mean, there's nothing like a nice cold beer sometimes, or a glass of wine with the right meal or something like that. But if that is your go-to mechanism, amongst others, if that's your go-to mechanism for trying to kind of de-stress or let go, then it's well, we all know that there's consequences to some of those mechanisms. You could become addicted to those things, or whatever, your body physically, and you emotionally, psychologically. So I would say it's not ideal for all the reasons that you point out, so it's harder to do the work yourself, as we all know, and it's a ongoing process. Yeah. But I would say that that's what you got to kind of do, is you got to take it on.
Yeah.
You got to take on the focus, and then you got to take on the letting go. And there are, okay, so now we're moving more towards your original question, the letting go. So assuming we're a little bit better at focusing, I would argue that that kind of full-on intentional focus helps mush down the chop.
Mhm.
It actually has that effect,
Yeah.
because by virtue of maintaining a solid focus, you're pushing the distractions away, and you're kind of calming that. If you can do that, and if you have some success at that, those are the moments when you can start to be less intentional in terms of your focus, your focal point, and you can just slowly ease into what is it that you can now more fully let go of. You
Yeah.
can do that again in your meditation. You can do that outside of your meditation in your life. You can do that in your mind. You can do that in your body. So, there's lots of stress release techniques that we can employ. For example, to let go, you can sit down with your eyes closed or open, and you can do one of those exercises where you just start to release everything from the top of your head down, and work
Uh-huh.
through your fingertips, work through your whole body, work through the base of your feet. One of the things I like to do is kind of, whether you go outside, I think they call it earthing or grounding, when
Uh-huh.
the weather's nice, which it isn't particularly today, but to go out barefoot and to just viscerally let that stress. So you're intentionally letting go of all that energy and all that stress, and letting it just seep into the earth.
Well,
And
Wim Hof would say it's a perfect day because he's the ice plunge bath guy, right? Like
yeah, yeah,
using
well,
cold as a technique for releasing stress.
yeah, he's in a different league than me.
Yeah. Not
He's
my
he's
preferred method.
he's pretty remarkable what he does. And yeah, and the Tibetans do that thing too. They call it tumo, where they sit outside in the cold and they take wet cloths and wrap their bodies in wet cloths in frigid temperatures, and then they meditate and they generate enough heat that it steams the
Oh, wow.
cloth dry. So
Yeah.
yeah, you can, if you're good enough at energy manipulation, you can do that kind of stuff. And he teaches people how to do it, and the Tibetans do their thing
Yeah.
too.
Well, it
So
takes training again, like
it,
anything else,
and
right?
that's kind of what I'm saying here too. It all takes training, training of your mind and your emotions, so that you can control it, and you can control the letting go of it. The letting go of it is actually productive. You're not kidding yourself. So whether you're releasing that tension into the ground, into the earth, and doing that consciously, and just feeling it wash down through you, or you literally, it's like you pulled a plug or something and you just feel it drain out. You don't have to do anything other than let it go once you're in a calm enough state to begin with. So you can sit out, you can go outside with your feet on the ground, and you can just release that and let it go. Similarly, in a meditation, you can do the same kind of things. You can ask yourself, where am I feeling stress in my body? Are my shoulders up to here?
Right.
I need to consciously let them down, and consciously let the energy flow down through me. So, and these are just, very simple, very straightforward techniques that most people know about, but how often do we employ them? Like, just like we were talking about the vagus nerve a couple sessions back, and would you consciously take a deep breath and exhale it, releasing stress as you go, to send a signal back to your brain that actually I'm not stressed? Because your brain's like, well, you're taking deep breaths and you're exhaling nicely, so everything must be okay. I'm going to quit firing all these neurons, and I'm going to quit sending all these signals and cortisol to your body, because otherwise you're feeling pretty stressed to me, so I know how to react to that. Now you're sending me a different signal. So you
Yeah.
can do that in meditation. You can do that outside of meditation. You can do all these different physical techniques. And then I would say, taking it to a degree that's a little bit more subtle, is what are you not physically stressed about per se, but emotionally or otherwise stressed about? What are the thoughts in your head? What are you feeling because that person triggered you a half hour ago, or you've got this presentation coming up that you're nervous about, or whatever? And
Uh-huh.
can you use some of those kind of same techniques to work against those impulses and influences? And can you get yourself to just release and let go of the tension that you're feeling in that moment, emotionally, or just in your thought forms, in your current awareness, and just be more conscious about letting it go, and see to what degree you can truly let it go, as opposed to intentionally push it away, which is a good place to start. But if you really get to the point, and we've all had our relaxed moments and aspire to have more of them. When you're relaxed, you're just relaxed. Like, you're not trying to be relaxed. At that point, you're kind of just seated in that. You're just sitting in that kind of calm energy. So the only question is, I guess, do you have to wait for that relaxing moment to come, in which case you can, abide in it like the dude? Or can you control that so that you can invoke that relaxing moment, create the calm, and stay in the calm, and sit there in the calm? And I think that you get better at all of that with practice, and that it's something that we should be doing regularly, because our world is regularly imposing its energy on us. And so we have to build a conscious program, almost, if you will, to push back against that. So we have to kind of start off with willful intention to focus and push those influences back. But then we have to take it to the next step, I think, and say, okay, now that I've held those forces at bay, can I take a few more moments to sit here and relax and be in this moment where there's no chop, and relax into that sensation, absorb that, and things I want to say come full circle at that moment. We start off by wrestling with all these influences on our consciousness and pushing them back and holding them at bay and doing all this willful work. But and that takes some focus and energy and intention. But if you can get to that point where the chop is calm, and you can hold it and you can maintain that, that's when energy is generated. It's not just that you're relaxed, and it's not just that you're letting go, but if you can go even more deeply into those moments of letting go and relaxation, and you can hold that and you can sustain that, then that's actually a deep meditation. And that's, and maybe that's even a place you can get to in the course of your work day or something like that, where you just take a deep breath and you just go, too much chop. I'm just going to let it go, let it go, let it go. But instead of getting to that point of relaxation and saying, I'm done, if you will, now I'll dive back into the shit, you say, I'm going to take it a little bit farther. I'm going to just try and really get into this moment of no chop, and see if energy is generated in the process. And I would argue, from my experience, that's where a lot of energy is generated, and where it comes from is those moments where your mind isn't all over the map. You're in that state that, your brain waves probably shift, everything changes. So on one hand, it's what I'm hearing, part of this is mental training, or directing your focus consciously and willfully with intent. And I might play a little bit of devil's advocate here. Some of it feels like, well, you're kind of just pushing some things to the side for a moment so that you can relax, but then it comes back. Or what about like these really challenging things, or deep trauma, or things like, getting fired, or going through a divorce, or, these really tough life challenging things? How does this concept of letting go fit into that? And is there more
to the process than just, let me just put it in this container for a second or set it to the side. Let me focus on, my breath to calm my mind. But what happens when those things come back up? Is there a process of dealing with that goes deeper, within meditation or maybe some other analytical or self-reflection type work that you would do? Does that make sense?
Yeah, oh yeah, I think that's right on point, because of course all those things have to be dealt with.
Yeah.
You can't just, let go of some things that you need to address in your life. Like if you're unemployed, you should get employed,
Yeah.
because that it's important. So I guess what I would, I don't want to use the word argue. I guess what I would say
Yeah.
is that I agree with everything you said, and you can't sweep things under the rug. You have to address all those things in your life that need to be addressed. But what you can let go of maybe
Yeah.
is the additional stress associated with it, where you can regain some calm and some balance so that you can take it on when the time is right,
Yeah.
more directly and in a more empowered fashion. So I think that those things work hand in hand, and
Yeah.
that honestly, if there's some looming thing in your life that needs to be addressed, if you don't address it, it's not going to go away, and no amount of relaxation techniques are going to ultimately resolve that. So you have to you have to take the bull by the horns, and you have to address the things you have to address in your life.
Kind of what I'm
I would
hearing
say,
you say there is that, like, even just to start getting to a place where, let's say, maybe, for example, instead of, dealing with just getting fired and being pissed off at your boss, or, someone that, is responsible for having it happen, that you're not dealing with that with anger or hatred, but you can kind of calm that and deal with it more clearly, or in a less, for lack of a better word, like a less emotional or half empty emotional kind of state.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think again, that's exactly it. And I would say, back to energy management, what's efficient? So you get fired, of course you're not going to be happy, and maybe it wasn't fair, and maybe your boss is an asshole.
Yeah.
Well, so do I guess the question is, to what degree do you dwell on the unfairness of it and the revenge and whatever else, and
Yeah.
is that going to get you somewhere? Or to what degree can you say, yeah, he's an asshole, he wasn't, and that wasn't fair, and so then here you go, then can you let go?
Yes.
Not let go of the whole situation, but
Yeah.
can you let go of where you're channeling energy inefficiently? And can you, because look, our emotions are going to be like, that son of a bitch, I'm gonna,
Yeah.
I know where he lives, or whatever, like I'm gonna go to his boss and tell his,
Yeah.
or do you go, I need to get a job, or I need to take a vacation and get my act together and clear out and see what I'm going to do with my life? See, I would just say that's just efficient energy management. So you're letting go of the things you should be letting go of, and you're not letting go, but you're refocusing, recalibrating on the things that demand your focus and attention, but now in a clearer way, less emotional way, a more pointed way, a more productive, efficient way. And you're not wasting a bunch of energy with the things that we all know. That's is it human nature to want to get revenge or to be upset when you've been wronged? Yeah. But the question is, should you go after the guy and get a lawsuit going and or punch him in the nose? Or is it time for you to just say, maybe life is telling me that there's something better out there for me, and you let it go.
Yeah.
You let go all those emotions and all that frustration and all that unjustness that you want to reconcile, and you just have a moment of clarity where you say, well, that's not going to get me where I want to get. And
Mhm.
now I'm out of reactive mode to this funky situation and bad energy and bad person or whatever, and now I'm reclaiming my energy, I'm reclaiming my focus and my consciousness, and I'm going to direct it where I think it's healthiest and most
Right, right.
efficient.
And this is where I
So
think there's some really good parallels to even just the work we do with clients here on, you know, reframing a bad situation, getting fired, for instance. And why I think this pairs nicely is you can get to a state to where it's not fueled by anger or hatred, or you're directing your energy in less constructive ways, but you can assess the situation properly. And yeah, it can still be, you know what, that boss was an asshole. You know what, I didn't really like that job anyway, and what's new, for what's out there, what's available to me, what's my next part of my journey, what's the opportunity. You can begin to get a clear picture, or classic tool we use, the seeing the quantum glass, right? You see both sides of it. It's not half full versus half empty. It's not one or the other, it's both.
yeah,
So yeah, there's some half empty things. Those things are still real. It's not sweeping that under the rug. But there's a half full side too, that maybe that wasn't the best place for you, or maybe there's something better, available to you. And now you can direct your energy towards creating that.
I completely agree. And I think that that's where, it's important for you to be self-aware, and for you to try to sweep the emotions of the moment out of the way to the best that you of your ability,
Yeah.
and that you reframe it. And like you just said, well, I didn't like that job anyway, maybe, or he was an asshole, or life's telling me to move on.
Yeah.
So what I'd kind of like to do at this moment is to say that, I mean, this is all perfect, a very kind of finite example of, like, I got fired, let's look into it. I
Yeah.
would argue that we can expand that to look at our life.
Uh-huh.
That there's there's a lot of things that we should, I call it inverting.
Yeah.
uh, and there's a lot of things, if we reflect back on our life, where um, maybe some negative moments turned into exactly the right thing that we wanted. So negative isn't always negative, depends on where it leads you to.
Mhm.
And if you can let go of the negativity of the moment and see where it's taking you, or if there were messages there for you in that moment, if there were lessons to be learned, we can do that at the given moment. And we can also reflect back, Don Juan calls it recapitulation, on the course of our lives, and say, where were those negative moments that maybe something positive came of? It
Yeah.
took me a long time to let go of the negativity, or it took me a long time to reframe it in a positive way. But now that there's enough distance, enough time has gone on, I
Yeah.
can look back and say, well, that actually turned out to be a really good thing for me. And
Right.
so I think that that's another opportunity to recognize where letting go is helpful, where you started off feeling pretty negative about something or other. You got trained over time to let go of that very limited notion of that was a solely exclusively negative thing. Well,
Mhm.
actually it wasn't. In fact, it might have led to some very positive things. So
Right.
it's easy enough for us to do that over time for certain situations. Then I would say for other situations, because we could come up with a million of those too, well, there's some really lousy things that happened to me, and they were just plain old lousy. And
Yeah.
it didn't turn into something positive. I didn't find the job of my dreams. It was just really lousy. Then what I would say to those situations too is, well, what effect did that have on you?
Mhm.
Like, did you learn anything in the process? Did you become stronger? in the
Mhm.
process? Did you become more patient in that process? So I would say, even those things that you might tell me did not invert and become positive, I would say, widen your blinders a little bit. Maybe some of the worst things that happened to you in your life were some of the things that trained you the best way and that helped you grow the most. I mean,
Right.
ultimately, pain is the biggest motivator and it's the biggest growth factor. So none of us seek it out particularly, but
Yeah,
when
yeah,
it happens, if we survive it and
right.
it changes us usually for the better, or hopefully it does, and it could and should. We don't
Yeah,
want to get bitter and rigid in our approach to life. So then we have another choice to make. I've been dealt this lousy hand of cards at the moment. How do I react to it? And that's another moment where you're letting go and you're choosing a new fresh reaction and choosing to be healthier in your response to all that. And so, we started off this conversation today saying, well, I'm a big believer that in order to let go, you got to focus. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
focus, focus, focus. Now I'm saying, interesting. In order to focus on the right things, you got to let go.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah,
And
yeah.
if you're not capable of letting go, it's like, I like the image of Tarzan swinging through the jungle. If you it's
Yeah,
just like,
yeah.
you gotta let go of this one in order to move forward with that one.
Well,
So
it's the yin and yang philosophy, right? I mean, you can't have one without the other. It's the conscious effort of one and it's the releasing of another. And it happens everywhere in nature. I mean, you have to destroy a tree to build a house. You have to, it's a dance, as you said earlier, right? I mean, it's an
yeah,
energetic dance of what am
yeah,
I putting my energy towards? What am I willing to let go of so I can dedicate over here? They have to go hand in hand.
they have to go hand in hand. And I think, um what should I say? It sounds highfalutin, but that's where wisdom comes in. Or the calmer you can get in your life and in your mind, then you'll know better when to let go and when to hold on tightly and when to focus.
Yeah,
And we all know, we recognize it in other people more easily, but we also know
right.
in ourselves there are times, or we might argue, well, that person in my life, or even I'm too much of a pushover, because my default is to let go.
Uh-huh.
Or to give in. That might be a better way to put it. And we
Right.
know other people who are too willful, too strong, and they err on that side.
Uh-huh.
So this all leads me to say that all of these practices, meditation, mindfulness, being calming the chop, slowing your thoughts down, controlling your emotions a little bit, putting some distance and some objectivity in there, all of that helps create a balance and creates a calmness so that you can be clearer about when to let go and how,
Mhm.
and when to not let go in with full intention, and to willfully intend the goals and the all the things that you've envisioned and outlined for yourself, the things you choose to manifest. Manifestation does not come without effort. You can't just do it all in your head. You have to engage. So we all have things we want to manifest in our lives, or we feel are important to manifest in our lives, and that takes our full attention and our full focus. But in the middle of that, um, things intercede and they cause us distractions. And can we let go of those things? There's a book I read in college by, what was his name, the psychologist, Dr. Wayne Dwyer, was that his name? You
Uh-huh.
recognize that
Yeah.
name? And he told this little story of like a deer, a buck, big buck, was trying to go down to the creek to get a drink of water, and there were all these bramble bushes, and he started to walk down to the creek, and he got his antlers tangled in the bramble bushes, and so he couldn't get the drink of water. So he started getting tangled up, and he started pulling at these brambles, and both one thing led to another, and he just decided he needed to take out all of the bramble bushes that he could see.
Yeah.
When there was this beautiful little path to the creek to get a drink of water. And I think that sadly represents much of our lives at times. We start off with the right intention, but then all these other factors come in, and we get caught up in these things.
Yeah.
And then we forget that originally I just wanted a damn drink of water, and now I've decided to destroy every bramble bush within eyesight.
Right.
So establishing this clarity and this calmness and this balance and trying to not be distracted, it's a dance of willful intention and intentional goal setting and manifesting, whether in your meditation, whether in your mindful practice, whether just at work, and balanced with what are the things that are distractions, what are the things I need to let go of, and can I see that clearly? Can I release them readily? Because the things that are most emotional to you, that are most aggravating to you, are the things that you give yourself a million reasons to not let go of.
Yeah.
Well, that son of a bitch, you can always justify it. And if you're smart enough, you trick yourself into justifying virtually anything.
Yeah.
But the question is it the brambles or is it the water? And so
Right.
letting go becomes an exercise in focus.
Yeah.
Letting go.
Quite the paradox.
Yeah, how about that?
And what I wonder about is, again, going back to this concept of reframing or recapitulation, as you've called it, these past experiences, because I think for a lot of people, maybe there's something that could be lingering. It's been around for years. It's a regret that you have, that you just have held on to for so long, and takes up so much energy over the course of years. Will you do that kind of reframing, analytical analysis process within meditation, or is that a separate kind of practice?
No, that's a really great question. I think that's a very important part of meditation at times, or a very useful technique. We talked about focusing on a candle flame or doing mantras or whatever. Those are all meditation techniques. But to hold a concept in your mind, to get resolution to it, is a meditation technique. So you could do something very abstract, like I just want to meditate on love, or I want to meditate on compassion. But you could also make it less abstract and say, I want to meditate on how to forgive this person for what they did to me, or I want to meditate on how to understand how that incident that happened to me decades ago is still affecting me today when I don't want it to. And that can be a meditation. It literally can, where you sit down and you get yourself calmed down, and you just hold that in the back of your mind. You don't have to be consciously thinking about it or trying to pick it all apart, every little detail, but you just say, there was that thing. And I want some clarity on that thing. And you hold in your intention, I want that clarity, or I want resolution, or I want to see a way out of this. I want to see a path forward. And you sit there and just, to the best of your ability, let go. So we have a focused goal, but we have a process of letting go to kind of go, well, I want to let go enough so that something might bubble up that gives me a way of resolving this. And that resolution may take action, may require action on your part. Like, you meditate on it and you go, after all these years, I could actually see their perspective
Yeah.
better than I
I should
could
call
then.
that person and apologize, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or I should let it go because they told me they don't want to ever hear from me again.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So now maybe it's time for me to go. Well, but see, now it's easier to let go because you can say, I've reframed this.
Mhm.
I can see it from a broader perspective. I get why their buttons were pushed, or I see what I was missing at the time. I still think that they misunderstood some things or yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
But now that I'm looking at it kind of through a broader lens, all right, I can see how it all, escalated the way it did.
Yeah.
All right, great. Boom.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Off it goes. And
Yeah.
so, and that was a function of, I guess I want to say a thought process, but also a meditation. It was a function of you letting go as best you can in your meditation to see what percolates up
Yeah.
in from your subconscious or from wherever these things come from, where you were presented with a different perspective and a different vantage point. So you did the work, you took on the task, you let go successfully enough that a different perspective could bubble up within you. And then after you've seen it all more clearly, you say, I need to give them a call and apologize.
Yeah.
Or, okay, I need to understand where they were coming from and let it go.
Or I'm ready to release this and direct my focus and energy towards constructive creation of an outcome, a reality that I do want.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
Taking something that has been so half empty or negative for so long and simply just asking or posing the question to yourself of like, well, what could possibly be half full about this? Because it's there. I just maybe haven't acknowledged it yet or recognized it. Let me meditate on what those possibilities are. Now you get the whole picture and you get to choose the meaning around it that you want, right?
I think that that's true. And I think, I'll go so far as to agree with your statement that there's always a half positive there, even in the most horrifying of situations. If that caused you strength or compassion, I mean, it's like they say the best counselors for addicts are former addicts. So if you paid your dues as an addict or had wrestled with alcohol or whatever so that you could be in a position to help somebody else out, then that's a very deep negative that has been spun into something that's incredibly valuable. So I think that we all have negative moments in our past. We all have negative experiences that have happened to us fairly or unfairly, or however you want to otherwise kind of calibrate it. But somehow or other, if you can let go, back to letting go, if you can let go of your former way of looking at it, if you can let go of any other emotional attachments which you put on it at the time, if you can let go of a framing that you've repeated over and over again because you're telling yourself the story over and over again the same way, if you can let go of all those structures, then you can see it differently, you can react to it differently, and you can move forward into something that's healthier, more balanced, and less consuming of your energy. I mean, we're kind of talking about, like, no one wants to let go of positive moments or wonderful experiences. So we're talking about letting go of negative things. And I would say that's energy management. And, the people, I mean, we may have people in our lives that every time you see them at Thanksgiving dinner, you snarl at each other. I don't know. But ultimately, I want to say, despite that, it all resides in our head. You might decide not to look at them across the Thanksgiving table, but at least you make that decision, and at least you're the one that says, but I'm not going to hold on to this crap because life's too short. And whether I was right or wrong or indifferent, I still get to have a choice where I say, this is about energy management, which is a little bit more objective than, who's on first, who and what happened to me, and I don't know. And, and so you can just kind of let go, or that's the process. That's
Yeah.
the thing you put forth, is like, what can I release, and what can I not hold myself to? And that's something that, that I think about sometimes too, is Don Juan has a concept called erasing personal history, which
Mm.
is a challenging thing to do, because we all remember our lives and the things that happened in them. But it's a reframing process of like, can you look at scenarios differently? Can you let go?
Yeah.
Can you let go of, one of the big ones for me, I think, to spin this, you guys are big on towards and away and all that stuff, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to move. I don't know if this is aligns with your approach or not, but I want to move away from negative and towards positive or something. Instead of letting go of negative things, I want to talk about letting go of, well, I guess it's negative too, letting go of restrictive things that,
Yeah.
we've moved kind of from very specific, how do I let go of being fired, and move towards, in a healthy way, to the next steps, to a reframing of larger aspects of our life. And I want to say that at the end of the day, we're responsible for a lot.
Uh-huh.
Ultimately, the resolution to a lot of things exists, here and here. And,
Yeah.
and we hold ourselves back a lot by not letting go, and by not letting go of some of the negative, but also we hold ourselves back a lot by remembering our limitations and weaknesses.
Mm.
And so maybe that's what I'm trying to say here, is instead of letting go of a negative anecdotal experience,
Right.
what if I was capable of letting go of ways that I limit myself?
Mm.
What if I know myself too well?
Mm.
But the problem is that I remember that time in third grade when that guy punched me and I didn't fight back for myself.
Right. Right.
And so I think I must be kind of weak.
Yeah.
And
I
that
can't fight for myself. I can't stick up for
I
myself.
don't stick. And and I remember that other incident in high school, and I remember that one girlfriend that broke up with me, and I remember, that I could have made the final
Yeah.
shot and won the game.
We'll point to all the data points, all the evidence that substantiates that current limiting belief structure.
And you don't let go of those data points largely, do you, or do we? So
Yeah.
so from, I don't want to say the broadest perspective, but from a very broad perspective,
Yeah.
then letting go is not just letting go of, a frumpy conversation I had this morning, but as you
Yeah.
become more adept at letting go, and as you see the value in it, can you let go in such a way that you reframe yourself and you allow yourself more than you otherwise would have? Like, I sometimes think, this is silly maybe, but if somebody bonked you over the head with a big ass frying pan and knocked you into tomorrow,
Yeah.
and when you wake up you don't remember who you are,
Yeah.
who would you be? Would you
Yeah.
be that weak kid that got beat up in third grade? Would you be the guy that didn't make the final touchdown to win, the game? Or
Yeah.
would you get a fresh start at reassessing who you are,
Yeah.
and putting yourself in situations that might cause you to grow and develop?
Right.
And maybe you just haven't had the right exposure to fully blossom. I just saw a great thing a couple different places on the news recently. I think a little about 4-year-old kid in Aurora or somewhere
Mm.
that it turns out he's a piano prodigy, but nobody knew it until they put him in front of a piano.
Oh, wow.
And so this piano tuner guy took a bunch of money and bought him this beautiful piano, because he said you can't ignore a gift from God like this. Well,
Yeah.
if that kid had never been put in front of the piano, or if you had never been put, or I had never been put in the environment which caused our growth, all we remember is the fight from third grade that we lost, the girlfriend that broke our heart and height.
Right.
So largely, I ask myself often the question, what can you let go of?
Yeah.
What's
Old
holding you back?
stories, old things that we continue to reinforce by telling that story over and over again, that keeps us in that limited or, paradigm that what we are capable of, what we're not capable of, where our potential is capped, limited, right? Like those are all just repeated stories.
And they require energy.
Yeah.
and they hold us back into story. If only the stories had an end to them. But yeah, they hold us back because what we're conjuring up again and again is, and we're reinforcing those limitations, and it's consuming energy just to go through that process.
Right.
Whereas if we acknowledge that and we recognize that and said, okay, well, that was then, this is now. And I've got plenty of other examples that prove I'm not a weak person. My heart has mended itself since high school. When we go through this process, so then we back to choosing, where do I want to consciously put my energy in a productive, fruitful way?
Right.
And when those things come up, and I have that little image of getting beat up on the playground, I try to be mindful. That's mindfulness. And we say, it's an old story. It doesn't reinforce what I'd like reinforced at this point in my life. And it consumes time and energy. And I don't have enough of that for the things I want to manifest.
Right.
So to the degree we can start controlling our minds, and that's where focus comes in, so that we can have stronger minds to control what we want in and what we want out, so that we can let go better by intending to let go and having it work.
And
it's like you said, yin and yang, that the one day's focus is another day's letting go, and vice versa. Each supports and subsumes and helps the other. And a lot of it is in the moment, what can I let go of? And a lot of it is, what can I let go of historically that's not serving me, and my current goals and my current intentions and what I want to manifest. And I would say, because I keep hammering, I'm a believer in your energy profile. If you want to manifest, all the things that are pulling your energy the wrong place, they're taking that away from your potential to manifest. And so you have to kind of take those things on. So this is back to your question too, of like, well, are you just pushing everything aside? On the contrary, you can't. You can't. You have to. But in addressing those things, there are times to intend and there are times to let go. There are times to say, that doesn't serve me to think of myself as weak and being bullied in third grade. It's back to the Leela. It's back to the dance of like, what serves me in this moment, but all within this umbrella of my own autonomy, the autonomy of my consciousness, the integrity of my consciousness, and the autonomy and integrity of my energy field. So that I can manifest what I want, so that I can let go of what I want, and so I can move as best I can in this process towards healthier and more empowered and clearer. And it's a process, but day by day, if we do mindfulness and meditation, some of it focus, some of it letting go, if that's some of it's in the moment, if some of that's letting go of things in the past, it's all a process towards your own refinement and your own empowerment. And so, but I think that the focus and the letting go hand in hand and serve each other, right? Makes sense.
Absolutely. Well, that's really taking an inventory of your life, your beliefs, the stories that you tell, choosing, getting awareness on, well, what is this serving me Is it not serving me? What do I want to keep? What do I want to find? And then directing the focus towards really just telling a new story. But it's not bullshit story. It's all the same data points. It's just a different way to tell the story.
Right.
One thing that it keeps coming to mind as you're talking is one of the probably the most powerful exercise I did when I first started working with Bill. And it comes out of the course that he created at the very end. There's an exercise where you choose 3 people that you feel had wronged you over the course of your life, and that you still have maybe anger towards or resentment, and you write them a thank you note. And in order to do that, you need some other tools, like you need to know how to, see the situation clearly, or look at, well, what was empowering about this? How did this serve me? How did this person that, and for me, it was a past girlfriend that treated me very poorly. And I had all this, I was carrying it for so long. And I was like, well, she taught me what I do want in a wife and my partner. She taught me what love isn't. She taught, so it gave me clarity on really what I do want. And it's like, thank you for treating me poorly, essentially. And I remember writing this out, and I'm like, tears are pouring out, and my piece of paper is like all soggy at the end of it. But like that act was the releasing of it. That was the letting go of the energy that I was putting towards it that wasn't serving me. It's like, why carry that resentment for, what? Like it's
chewing your energy up.
Yeah.
No, I think that's just perfect. That's a perfect example. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. And it's a perfect example of release. And what I said earlier about inversion, like in order to say thank you, you have to find something positive about it, I guess. And so what you did was you did that inversion of yours, like, well, these are all the negative things that you threw my way, but what I got out of it were these positive things. And so then you're in a position to say thank you, and you're in a position, if not to let go of the person or experience, you're in a position to let go of the hurt or the anger or the frustration, the pain, because all of a sudden you're focusing on the good that came out of it, and you're going, oh wow, I went through all that shit thanks to you, by the way, but I went through all that shit, and it put me in such a better position to handle what turned into my marriage, or because I was smarter about it, or I was more savvy or more experienced. So that's what, and I, for me too, I feel like, I don't know why this popped into my head, but, going through that kind of exercise for me is like, it shows the importance of release and letting go, as opposed to, people say forgive and forget. And I have a little bit of a problem with both of them. Like, I think what you just described is a lot healthier. You don't have to, I don't know if you can forgive somebody for doing bad things to you, maybe, but you can certainly spin it into what good came out of it and say thank you, which is what Bill suggested you do. And you don't forget about it, because those are the things that resulted in these good things.
Exactly.
And so that's a good lesson for you. So I'm not a big fan of forgive and forget, but I am a great fan of invert and reframe and be thankful for. And so that's a very perfect, tangible exercise, which is what Bill was so good at. Perfect, tangible exercises.
Absolutely. And why this conversation is so great, because it really does fit in well with, what we call the notion of rewriting or upgrading your software. It's evaluating those stories. It's taking an inventory. It's, what do I want to keep? What do I want to enhance? What am I choosing to let go of or delete? Right. Like, it's another way to frame it. It's another way to talk about this process of how do we upgrade ourselves? Well, really it's telling a new story, so.
And I think I don't know the techniques you guys use to do that, but what occurs to me is that, like I just find it's easy for us to justify bad behavior or justify, well, that person wronged me, or that
Yeah.
person this or that. And so, so then, Bill or somebody comes along and says, okay, new software. And you go, well, that sounds great, but that person still pissed me off. That person still wronged me. So you're still stuck there. But if you
Yeah.
have a mechanism like he shared with you, like, no, make this into being thankful, then that not only is a new technique and approach, but it results in new software because you've been tricked into letting go of your resentment.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that we all have to be tricked into stopping the incessant justification that we employ constantly. We're all too
Right.
smart for our own good. So we're always like, yeah, well, I want new software, but not at the price of having to forgive that asshole. Like, it's like, well,
Right.
so we got to figure out a way to get you to want to forgive and forget or let go or whatever and move forward into this new perspective. And so so for me, it's all about energy management and consumption and living more in the moment and not dragging all those things that consume all of that focus of yours
Yeah.
in with you. But what kind of techniques? Like that's a fabulous one, force yourself to write a thank you note. And then all of a sudden you've taken this big ugly thing in your life that consumed a lot of pain and heartache and continued to be a little, what's the guy from Charlie Brown with the pig pen, where,
Yeah.
you got this one thing that turns you into pig pen, with
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
storm around you. But if you can go, oh, actually, no, thank you. Storm goes away. Chop calms down.
Yeah.
You get to have new software. You get to move forward.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Well, love it as always. This was great. Yeah, I think again, this concept of letting go and reframing, I mean, there's so many parallels to the tools we use here. And one of the things that, we don't really like train this with clients, but it's like really spending the time to sit and meditate on something that you can explore, be it a past experience, be it something that happened today that's, consuming the energy, to be able to reframe it or invert it. I love those words, invert, recapitulate. Like, you really have to spend that good quality time, like, meditating on, bringing some awareness into some of these types of things in order to move forward, in order to create the new story. So
Right. So I'll add one more thing, even though that was a nice wrap up on your part. I
yeah.
think that for me, the next step, and again, I won't say final, is if you can do all that towards little incidents or anecdotal situations of your life or bigger ones,
Yeah.
where you're being thankful to someone who caused you this pain or whatever, to what degree can we do that with ourselves?
Yeah.
To what degree can we forgive ourselves, or can we be thankful to ourselves for maybe some pain that we put ourselves through, or some limitations that we had
Right.
we had to work through? And so to me, that's kind of the pinnacle of all this, is to say, where am I doing this to myself? Like, that person that broke my heart was limiting me
Yeah.
because I was putting energy into that and it was never getting resolved. Now I found a way to be thankful and to release myself from that cycle. Can I do that for different situations for myself?
Right.
Can I reframe my own self-definition? Can I reframe and release the harm I might have done to myself, because it actually maybe serves some larger purpose over time? And so I think we have to go through all the anecdotes of the day. We have to go through the anecdotes of our lives and the people in them, and take them on. As you asked earlier, do we sweep them or do we take them on? We take the bull by the horns, and then The pinnacle, I think, is, do we take on our own self-reflection? Do we take on our own self-definition? Do
Yeah.
we understand where we have limited ourselves, just like some other person might have limited and held us back?
Yeah.
Where are we doing that? And are we able to go through that process of letting go of our own limiting self-definition
Yeah.
so that we can have expansion in the process too? And that's a meditation.
Yeah. Love it.
And that's a mindfulness practice. And that's a way to engage ourselves in our lives.
Love it. Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.
All right, Brian. Well, this is always fun. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll have much more to follow up on. But yeah, fascinating as always. So really appreciate your time.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for yours. Yeah.
All right. Take care.
You too.